Afternoon. My name is Paul Cartwright. I'm from BRE, but I'm here today representing the S-IMPLER project. So I'm the project manager for the S-IMPLER project. And what the S-IMPLER project? Well, the name is probably not actually as simple as the name suggests. It's actually quite complex, but that S-IMPLER is where we're trying to get to. So I'll have to read this out because I always forget what it actually stands for because it's so long. But it means solid wall innovative installation and monitoring processes using lean and energy efficient retrofit. And again, this is a project that came through the Scaling Up Retrofit program, which was set up in 2013. So what's the challenge? So the S-IMPLER project is about retrofitting solid wall properties, and specifically we're focusing on concrete no-fines homes. So there's a sort of section through a no-fines wall there, so you can see what no-fines concrete is. It's instead of using sort of fine sand material, it uses effectively a kind of concrete paste that binds the aggregates together. And it was commonly used sort of between the 1950s and 1970s. And what we're specifically working with is the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, who have approximately 5,000 of these properties, and is estimated at least sort of 300,000 throughout the UK. So they're sort of non-traditional, hard-to-treat properties, and the executive has a massive challenge to, as part of their, they have about 90,000 properties they manage, and this is obviously a significant 5,000 is a significant part of that housing stock that they want to find solutions for, going from this pilot to scale. So they're looking for a cost-effective approach required for major energy and carbon reductions that are tenant-friendly and minimising disruption to tenants. So the properties, as you can see above there, most of them are currently tenanted. So there's people living in them. There's a couple of void properties, but what we're working on this project is looking at 7 of those properties in Antrim in Northern Ireland, and as part of this pilot project. So just a quick project overview. There's 8 project partners. There's Carillion Energy Services, sort of the contractor part of the consortium. We've got Northern Ireland Housing Executive, I mentioned before, BRE, project management providing technical input and other construction process and dissemination inputs throughout the project. We've got Collaborative Improvement, who's a process and lean improvement consultancy. Virtual Retrofit Manager, which is a software company who has a tool for surveying and managing the construction, process from monitoring the progress on site. Tensor, who have an energy monitoring tool. Leeds Beckett University are providing pre and post retrofit testing of the energy performance of the house. And the University of Huddersfield, whose specialism is in building information management and lean process improvement. So, it's funded, as I mentioned, from the Innovate UK, and there's capital funding provided from the Northern Ireland Housing Executive. So what are the key sort of challenges of this project? Are looking at 60% reduction in monitored energy cost, the same capital cost as the Northern Ireland building regulations, and delivered 10% faster with less disruption to tenants. And there's very much a project about coming up with technical solutions, but equal to that is about process improvement and how you can take this pilot to large scale to, with obviously the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, to other local authorities and solid walls generally throughout the UK, and looking at how you work with the supply chain, work with the client, the tenants, to come up with a process that meets all the different requirements and is cost effective, it can be done faster, less disruption. So key to this is looking at performance before and after. So we've sort of forensic performance analysis is key part of this through the working with the Leeds Beckett University, who've been doing a sort of detailed testing regime before construction started. And a number of tools from surveying through to putting the specification together, installation and monitoring through a staged process, and using tools and processes like BIM and this new retrofit manager as part of that process. And we're very much a step-by-step package approach with improvement cycles as we go through. So you can learn from those and move from one stage to the next to reach our ultimate goal of a new sort of service offer going forward to scale. So as part of the, before getting into the understanding, it was important to understand what the actual issues were. So we're now about halfway through the project, but going back a year ago, started with some testing of the properties, things like air tightness, coheating testing, and heat flux measurements, looking at how the building's performing at the moment. And that was led by Leeds Beckett University, and so we're at the sort of before stage at the moment, and we're just starting some testing of one of the first property, the sort of test property at the moment. And critical to that is obviously the actual looking at the physical building, but also looking at how occupants are using the building as well. So we've been doing some occupant energy monitoring through using a tool developed by a piece of hardware developed by Tensor, which is looking at taking measurements of the energy consumption, occupant behavior. And again, that's before and after retrofit. So we have a data set before and after to look at the impact of the improvements. And obviously ability to baseline for improvements going forward as well. So a key part of this project obviously is a process and how we come up with good solutions, technical solutions, but also how we implement a process going through where we can tackle those things like cost, time, minimize tenant disruption. So as I mentioned, NIHE have a large stock. They have properties all over Northern Ireland, different communities, different challenges, and they need to be able to have a process that they can take to scale. So we went through, in order to do it, we had to get a team of suppliers, and to achieve that, we went through a stage process. So we developed a process where the first part of that was just making the potential supply chain aware of what our challenge was, and a sort of pre-qualification stage. And this was through, and that led to some supplier engagement workshops, and as you see a picture there in Northern Ireland, and that involved the client, the partners, and the potential supply chain, and looking at the properties, understanding the challenges, and not just from technical challenge, but how suppliers work together in a team to deliver something that could then be taken as a partnership going forward to scale. Because obviously that can be as important as addressing those other challenges as well, because a sort of team approach to tackling these can be often, from experiences, can be a lot more effective than sort of individuals working on creating solutions. So as part of that process, as part of the tendering process, it's important that teams of suppliers formed solutions to tackle the challenge we presented. So we facilitated workshops with suppliers, including visits to the properties, so they could understand and form a team for an integrated solution. So external wall insulation provider teaming up with a company that can provide the render, for a contractor actually can install it. So combining products with installers rather than having a sort of one company do a turnkey solution. It was about them forming a team, and that was a mix of established companies in the market, some newer companies that have established themselves on the market, and some larger installers and contractors as well. So we went through a tendering process and assessment, and then we're now into the construction process itself. We started the first phase, and as part of that, there's an ongoing program of training and process improvement, working with the supply chain and going from stage to stage as part of an improvement cycle. So this is about going from planning through to post-completion through a stage process, going through those technical investigations, looking at performance monitoring, and what we call a voice of the customer exercise with tenants. So we've interviewed the tenants, there's regular engagement with them, and understanding what their concerns are through the process, so we can make improvements and understand as we go from stage to stage. So the key part of this is these improvement cycles. We've got how we've mapped out the process, we've got five phases, first starting with a test property and then 4 subsequent phases to sort of mimic large-scale retrofit. So if you have a terrace of homes, for example, you may have you may not be able to do the whole terrace in one go, or you may have to come back and retrofit one of the mid-terrace properties after you've already done a couple of properties either side. So all those scenarios can happen in large-scale retrofit. So we want to look at those scenarios in this pilot, so we could understand, the challenges that when you take this kind of when you actually go for a large-scale retrofit process. So through this, one of the partners, Collaborative Improvement, is running is established the lean champions with the suppliers. So each supplier has a lean champion who's their sort of dedicated person as part of the team, as part of the process improvement. We've done collaborative planning exercises, and we have a measurement tool, Calibre, which actually measures the construction process in detail in terms of how much time it takes to do each element. So we can go from stage to stage and look at those time changes and the potential of reducing the time during the process. In addition, we've got a tool which is the Virtual Retrofit Manager. So it does a full survey going through to putting a specification into a bills of quantities, and then you can actually monitor different tasks as you go through the process using a smart phone app. So the aim is to make those targeted improvements as we go through the process, with getting to the end of this project where we have something that we can look to take to scale. So talking about these improvement cycles, we start with a test property number 1, and then we're moving to, which we're just completing at the moment, moving to 2 further properties as part of the terrace, and then another 2, and then coming back to a which is currently a void property, and doing this one last. So, it's looking at different scenarios. You wouldn't necessarily be doing the whole terrace in one go. It could be because, the occupant can't, there's an issue where, or there's, for example, a void property, and there's some other works that need to be completed first before you can come back. So it's not a case where you can just always get access to a full terrace at one go. So these different scenarios have to be taken into account. There's actually a bungalow at the end as well, which was in the mix as well, which is actually a cavity wall construction. So we're taking on that as part of the project as well. So you say it's not just a case of an easy kind of terrace. There are different scenarios, different steps, staggers, and things that you have to take into consideration. So as part of this, we're using digital tools to support process improvement. We've got the Refurbify tool, which, as I said, is a smart app, and that does the full laser measurement survey of the property, and that can be converted into a full bills of quantity, which is a fast process to get the data you require as part of the developing the project specification. And we've also been using building information led by the University of Huddersfield. So they've developed a sort of BIM protocol, so we can allow for comparison of what-if scenarios. So as we go through the improvement cycle and say, well, actually, if you did this or did that, BIM provides that sort of hub of knowledge sharing through the different inputs, through the Retrofit Manager model, through the Calibre tool, through the energy data. So it's a hub of various different data sources that can be integrated to provide a way of doing scenarios of process improvement. So this is, we're now in the sort of, just as a summary of where we are at the moment, we're about halfway through the project of a 3-year program, and we just started the first, the test house, and we've got a supply chain selector, which is we've got a EWI supplier, Jablight, working with a render supply Inteletics, Constructive Thinking Studio design partner, and 2 Northern Ireland-based suppliers. One is a contractor installer, and then a window supplier. And that process has been managed through Carillion Energy Services, and we've started the testing of the first phase, which is the first test house, and we'll be going through the first improvement cycle in the coming weeks as we move on to the full terrace of 6 homes. And any further information there, so thank you.